Hey everybody, it's Dr. Jensen with CCJ3701, Research Methods in Criminology. So today we're going to be talking about a couple of different concepts, showing you a few things to start to pull together the class a little bit better. I know it's hard to operate when you're just going lab after lab and kind of in SPSS and kind of looking over lectures. Okay, what's the takeaway? What should I be getting out of this class? Well, if anything, you know you live in a world of big data, right? Where we're archiving, using technology, finding out all kinds of information that needs to be managed and processed about people, groups, organizations, and their behaviors and experiences. So if anything, you've started to learn some skills that show you how to navigate data, how to put data into SPSS or any number of software programs, how to start to run very basic things like frequencies on pieces of data, how to answer basic questions that you may have on data. That's analytics. Okay, so this is a very real skill set that you can use in any number of organizations. Every organization produces data. Every organization needs its data analyzed so they can better understand how things are working. We don't really have the luxury in this day and age of gut thinking, kind of armchair thinking, oh, that should work or it just feels good. Most places nowadays do what we call evidence-based decision making, or studies or programs that are evidence-based, meaning we've collected data on this and we have the proof to show you that it actually works or it's effective, or that we're at least going in the right direction. So welcome to that world, and know that the skills you're learning in this class are one little part of that world, and you can go so far with it. So hopefully it's starting to become apparent that that's what's going on. Eventually, as we start to round out midterm in the class, we're going to be pushing our efforts away from labs. Yay! For some of you. Labs may be a challenge. And moving more toward writing and doing kind of the parts and the pieces of the research paper. So one of the pieces you're going to be creating soon is that whole kind of wheel of science we talked about right at the beginning of the semester. We wonder about a topic. We go read about it, and we write up a literature review about it. Then we decide, that our question hasn't really been done or hasn't been answered effectively. So we decide to go collect data or use existing data to get an answer to the question that we have of how things relate or how things impact each other. And then we run some analyses and we see what we get. And then we discuss and unpack what we find. And that usually generates a lot of new questions. But that whole process of research goes on and on and on in these little cycles. That process often begins with you're wondering your topic. So recently you submitted some ideas for a topic, and my graduate teaching assistant and I will be going through those together and trying to make sure we can match data to your topic so it's doable, so you actually have something to analyze. But in the meantime, you can start pinning down your ideas and your abstract. So how to write an abstract. Let's actually look at an abstract for funners. Okay, this is one of my favorite studies. I use it in criminology class when we look at race and crime. So this article is by Maria Kreisen. It comes from 2002. It says, "Whites who say they'd flee, who are they and why would they leave?" So I actually think that's a pretty clever title. But then here's her name, the author's name, and then we actually have the abstract in italics right underneath. So it's a very short paragraph. We're going to read it together. "Questions have been raised about whether white flight, one factor contributing to U.S. residential segregation, is driven by racial, race-associated, or neutral ethnocentric concerns. I use closed and open-ended survey data from the multi-city study of urban inequality to explore who says they would leave and the reasons for doing so. 38% of white respondents said they would leave one of the integrated neighborhoods, with Detroiters and those endorsing negative racial stereotypes especially likely to do so. When asked why they might leave, whites focused on the negative features of integrated neighborhoods. Expressions of racial prejudice were also common, but neutral ethnocentrism rare. The results of an experiment asking about integration with Asians and Latinos are also discussed." So this is just a little overview of this study. You're actually going to write one for your study, okay, for your topic. But let's actually look at the pieces of this abstract so we can break it down and you can start drafting it up. So what is an abstract? Essentially, it's just a little summary and overview of your study. And it's often the thing we read before we decide to look at the whole article, okay? Gives us the thumbprint of the article. So abstracts provide A brief summary and overview of the most important considerations and findings of the study. A mention of the key methodological approach or the research methods used and relevant implications of the major findings. Provide the reader sufficient information, concise and precise. It's meant to be short and sweet. These are the components of an abstract. We're going to use our abstract we just read to make sure these are there. So number 1, a statement identifying the key focus or issues considered in the study. Let's go back to our abstract from Maria Kreisen. Does she have a key statement? Yeah, I mean, it's like right there. White flight, looking at residential segregation. We automatically know her topic and what she's doing and the key focus of the study. Number 2, a statement or statements about the nature of the data analyzed. Does she have a piece about that? Yep, it's right here. She used closed and open-ended survey data from the multi-city study of urban inequality. I wish you would have included the year as well, but that can happen later in the paper. But yeah, she told us I used survey data and it had closed and open-ended questions and it came from multiple cities. So we know where she got her data and how she got it. A statement regarding the major finding or result examined. So you're going to have lots of results in your study, but you want to pick the main one that's worth talking about. So she really talks about kind of how whites are responding to integrated neighborhoods, people from large cities like Detroit, racial stereotypes, and so forth. So those are some of the main findings that came out of her analyses. And then fourth, a statement or statements about the contribution, relevance, or potential use or implication of the reported finding. This Maria does not do as well, but it is there. So she talks about racial prejudice. The results of an experiment asking about integration with Asians and Latinos are also talked about. She could have been a little more obvious as to how her work can be used and what to do with it going forward. Okay, but essentially, those 4 things are pretty much accomplished, and that's how you make an abstract. I can't even tell you, I wish my professors would have provided me something like this because I kind of was just copying what I saw in a journal article. Okay, that looks good. A little bit about that, a sentence that looks like this, and I was just kind of mimicking what I would see in journal articles, not really knowing what I was doing or the purpose of it. This breaks it down into exactly what an abstract is about. The purpose, and all the little building blocks of it. So you can literally write these little sentences in isolation and then just weave them together. So hopefully abstract writing is a lot easier to manage. And you can start to go, okay, well, I know I want to use the ad health data. So I can write that sentence because I know it's survey data and I already have the code book, and you can read for pages and pages on how they got the data. They did this in-school questionnaire, this survey, and then they did like an at-home interview. Right there, you can just write that up, okay? Or any other data set you want to use. You can go see how they got the data, the people they talked to, how they got it. Was it interview? Was it survey? Was it observation? How did they get it? Okay. You already have your topic, so you can write up a little statement about that. We kind of call that the hook. So, what's your topic you're doing? You don't have a result quite yet because you haven't analyzed anything, so you can kind of leave this part alone for now, okay? But you probably have some ideas as to, how important your topic is, how it could be used, and why answering your question is useful, why finding out about it matters. So you actually could write number 4 as well. So you can actually write 1, 2, and 4 pretty well. And then as you start to do your analyses a little bit later in the semester, you can update number 3 with your results that you start to get. So anyway, I want you to start drafting your abstract, keeping these ideas in mind so that you can start to have some of your pieces of your final paper drafted. That way, when it comes to the end of the semester, you're not overwhelmed. You're just basically going to be weaving everything together, doing some formatting and final editing, and then basically you have a paper that wrote itself along the way. That's how I liked writing papers in undergrad. It can be a little painful to kind of have to pin myself down each week to write stuff, but it was sure nice at the end of the semester to have drafts of everything, especially when I had other classes, other exams, and other papers to write. So hopefully you find this helpful and you can start getting your abstract drafted. It's not going to be due for a little bit, but you want to start the drafting process. If you want more examples or need any help, let me know. Thanks.